Joshua O'Neal Jackson, born February 10, 1997. On September 27, 2019, the Memphis Grizzlies informed former 4th overall pick that they'd rather he not show up for the beginning of the season, instead starting just his 3rd season in the league with their G League affiliate. Just 3 years ago, Josh was considered the best player in his class and clear-cut star on the next level. Everyone that runs a mock draft or highlight channel were proclaiming him to be next up, but Josh had some bad habits he was developing that either he tried to correct and it didn't work, or no one told him these things. Let's talk about those now. Salute to my guy on Instagram, Gerard Cherry, for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Ash, get it! Jackson is a California/Michigan native that spent some time in both places due to his mom's Navy background. He grew up with a deep love for basketball and wanted to spend his every waking minute playing it. Love for the game ran so deep for Jackson that it made him neglect his schoolwork and fall behind, so bad that he was held back his 8th grade year to catch up. I completely understand. It's like that sometimes, man. To be great, you have to make certain sacrifices to gain the upper hand. Sometimes you can find that thin line and stay above it, and sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. It costs you in the present, but can pay dividends in the future. Josh would catch up, and by his senior year was a beast on the floor and making huge waves in the amateur basketball world. That year, he averaged 26.9 points and 13.1 rebounds a game, while also being named to the McDonald's All-American team, where he dominated his class, winning co-MVP honors. At this point, I had to check this guy out. I began to look closely. Could this 6'8 prospect really be the next great one? I mean, he has the height, the numbers, the notoriety. There was just one thing to check out to know if he was official. Stunt number 1, the eye test. Let me give you guys a little insight. Never underestimate that guy you see at the end of the bench when it comes to knowing the game and learning people. If there's anyone that has the best view or perspective and can help you the most, it's that guy. There's a reason you see all these NBA trainers, and at first glance you're like, why does Melo need this guy telling him what to do when he's a Hall of Fame caliber player? Why all these NBA guys are starting to train with these guys that never made it? It's because they see. Their job as a bench guy that never made it was to see. They can tell you everything you're doing wrong while your ego won't allow yourself to tell you. Truth be told, I enjoy studying players. Josh didn't pass the eye test for me. Well, JC, what did you see? Well, first, taking his height into consideration, I wanted to know what kind of 6'8 was he. I mean, there's Tony Snell 6'7", 6'8", and then there's LeBron 6'7", 6'8". There's Charles Barkley 6'4", and then there's PJ Tucker 6'4". Although he was tall enough, Josh didn't play or have the mass to assert his height on smaller players. He played like he was 6'4", 6'3", instead of building his post game along with a deadly mid-range/ISO game. He relied on using his athleticism and height to get to the rim, dunk, or finish over smaller guys. That or play the rebound game and get his points that way. The problem with that is, when you get to higher levels where everyone is that height, all of a sudden that put-back rebounding you did is no longer effective. You trying to drive the lane with that frame and lack of deception is now being cut off and attempts swatted into the second row. For these reasons, I knew he would struggle like he did at Kansas and like he's doing now. His rebounds were down every level he went up, along with his shooting, which let's talk about now. Stunt number 2, when will they learn? Shooting. Ask Kyle Korver, JJ Redick, Jason Kidd, Vince Carter what shooting has done for them. How much longer it's afforded them to stick around the NBA. Name me one of those guys that could have kept playing if they didn't have or develop a jump shot. Redick and Korver wouldn't even be in the league if it wasn't for the cold-blooded $1 million stroke they're equipped with. Shooting is the first thing you as a young basketball player need to perfect. The second thing I noticed about him, all the way back to the high school level, was the fact that he couldn't shoot. It just wasn't natural, like Tony Allen. Great defender, high motor, but just couldn't shoot the ball naturally. Jackson is the same way. His form has bad habits from not using it enough when he was younger, to the point fixing it would take a lot of work. In his lone season at KU, he shot 56% from the free throw line. I mentioned this first because how you shoot there really determine how good of a shooter you really are. He was solid from 3 at 37, but didn't attempt much, and his field goals were as expected for that level. When it came time for the draft, I knew some team would leap to take him based off the notoriety he'd built and expectations these sites, blogs, and mock drafts placed on him. I would never have taken him that high. I don't care who my owner was. You can't shoot, you can't play for me, plain and simple. Learning to shoot at that point would be an investment I'd much rather not make. Give me a shooter with athletic ability and a high motor any day over a lanky, frail game-style non-shooter. Because Josh isn't a smooth enough shooter, I sadly think he'll always be average in the NBA, and for his draft pick, a regrettable investment. Stunt number 3, high-level IQ. The one thing that can counteract all those deficiencies previously mentioned is being mentally advanced to play high-level, high-paced basketball. Thinking the game, and not just thinking it, but doing so faster than everyone else, is the one thing that can save a player from himself on those levels. People are so puzzled how Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Devin Booker, CJ McCollum, all these guys who aren't the best athletically and don't have that natural dunk contest athleticism and motor can dominate the game like no one else can. It's because they think the game with the best that's ever done it. Best example is Steph when he was at Davidson. I've never seen anything like this. This guy would see triple teams at times, box in 1, triangle in 3, and he would still have 30, the W, and a game winner. He knew what you were going to do before you did it, and the way to do it where you couldn't stop him. You see, Josh never really had to think the game. He was always bigger, faster, and more athletic at his position, so he didn't have to slow the game down. He didn't develop things like passing, dribble moves, post-game, footwork, counters. No, he just ran straight lines and played the rebounds for putbacks. After shooting, or better yet, they go hand in hand. Thinking the game is one of the most important things you can learn. Watch film over and over, first of you and everything you can do better, then of the defense, then of the help defense, next the pace of the game, situations in the game. Everything that requires thinking. Josh wasn't told or taught these things, and I think for these reasons, he isn't in the league currently. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.